Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for clicking on and tuning in to the first pilot episode of The Hidden Beyond. So the Hidden Beyond podcast is something that I want to share little stories that I'm after hearing, some old tales that was passed down. So I look forward to sharing the stories and tales of the paranormal, missing people, unexplained murders, and so much more. I plan to have some old and modern stories, and I also will have some guests pop on the episodes to come. So with the Hidden Beyond podcast, I want to be able to just dive a little bit into paranormal stuff, missing persons, stories from locally from where I'm to, and then maybe later on we'll venture out. We're going to just test the waters on this. But right now, I will present to you the first episode called Cold Feet, the Ghost of Miss Molloy. So the story is based on the events that were witnessed and passed down over decades. Although the original story is true, the mysteries of the hauntings are still there for us to wonder. Miss Molloy was a young bride who was happy on her wedding day. She was from a small town called Manuels in Newfoundland, Labrador. So a fishing community in Conception Bay in the mid 1900s, or mid to early 1900s actually. I don't have a specific date, but I think it was the early 1900s. So when the family was at the church with their friends, they were all waiting for the young lad who was a fisherman to show up on his big day to start his new life with his bride. Although it wasn't uncommon for some men to show up late, could be out to the pub with his buddies, but on this particular day, no one had seen him. So as the morning was progressing, whispers erupted that the groom had a change of heart, and instead of facing his fiancée, he fled the town like a coward. As a few hours passed, the priest finally came to the family and told them they would have to postpone or make later arrangements for this matrimony. Miss Molloy, she was very distraught, and being so young and shocked of the embarrassment was too much for her. With all the stress and dramatic fashion, she ended up running out of the church and not even in her right mind of thought. She ran down a dirt road hoping to see her fiancé. As she was running, the tears flowed down her face, and she ran up the dirt road, and then as she got further, she ended up running towards the rail bed. And for some reason, she thought she would see him on the tracks waiting for the next train from the city. And she ran with her wedding dress dragging along on the railroad tracks. At the moment she got so far, she thought she saw him. And then all of a sudden, she can hear the train coming from the city. While she was on the tracks at that moment, her dress had got stuck on a railroad spike. Now, nobody seems to know the fact if she struggled to get off or if she just accepted fate. But the material was thick, and today the people do not know what actually went through her mind when the train was coming. There was a loud shrieking of metal on metal at the same time as screaming of poor, lonely Miss Molloy. In the tragic events, Miss Molloy was deceased when people gathered around and found her body. The story still lives on with events and witnessing the pain from a different time. In the early 1960s, a group of young adults were heading up the railroad bed to go to a camping spot in Manuels, when a girl in the group lost focus of the conversation from her friends and her eyes locked onto a woman in a white dress up ahead on the tracks. It was near dark, but it was still enough light to see a figure just standing there aimlessly. When she turned to tell the group, they all looked up the tracks, and never seen anything. She was gone. But one of the boys spoke up in the group and said, "That's Miss Molloy." For years later, there were often other witnesses who came forward and said they hear moaning and sobbing around the tracks before sunset, and around the same time the train had took the poor bride-to-be's life. In the 1980s, 2 years before the tracks were officially taken up, a teenage boy was taking a shortcut home on the railway tracks when he heard a faint whistle and the slight sound of an engine. He shook it off, thinking it might be just a transport truck off in the distance. It wouldn't be the train because they stopped running a year before. It was around sunset, and all of a sudden he heard footsteps behind him. When he turned around, the small stones behind him were disturbed and moved, like as footprints were walking along. Without hesitation, he ran for his life. In 1993, a small group of young adults who traveled from town to see the haunted spot where the tracks once laid. Now it was just a dirt road. They brought a Ouija board to do some spirit channeling. After hearing stories of the bride of Miss Molloy, the group had little success, so they started to walk back. Around 10:30, walking back to their vehicle, when behind them in the distance, they claimed they heard moaning and crying. They got more than what they bargained for, and their bravery turned into fear. Now, it could have been a coyote or some kids in the area spying on them and decided to give them what they wanted, but they never stuck around to find out. The last known report incident was in 2004, when two young girls were out for a walk just after supper, and walking up the dirt road, the two girls told people they saw in the distance a white mist that seemed to be a figure of a person. The mist almost looked like a dress in the way that it draped down, but there were no feet or legs or anything. It was just a beer underneath. The mist hovered a foot over the ground. They did not venture forward. One of the girls looked back as they were walking away, and it was gone. From hearing the stories and doing research, poor Miss Molloy could be still out there today with a tortured spirit, with a life taken so young, still searching for the groom who got cold feet. Thank you for listening. I hope you found this entertaining. I'll share more with you in the coming weeks. Please like, comment, subscribe to each of my platforms, and I'll have more nice stories and spooky stuff for you later on. So long, until next time, watch out for the hidden beyond.